my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. I am the City Witch, and today we're going to be doing a book review for Crimson Craft, Sexual Magic for the Solo Witch by Halo Quinn. So before I deep dive into this book review, I'd just like to take a moment to walk you through how I like to do my book reviews. So the first important thing you need to know is that everything I say in this video is my personal thoughts, opinions and experiences while I worked my way through this book. It has no bearing whatsoever on the author. It's more about the content and the topic in regards to witchcraft and whether or not I enjoyed the book. Now, I have read the book from cover to cover, so when I did that, I made plenty of notes, and I've divided the notes up into positives and negatives. So the positives are things that I personally enjoyed about this book and consider to be a positive, and the negatives are things that I didn't like about the book or that I felt was missing or not relevant, and therefore I consider to be a negative. I score the book from 1 to 10 at the end, and I let you know if it made it into my personal library or not. And I will of course give you a look inside this book and at the contents, and hopefully by watching this book review you can decide whether this is the right book for you, if you'd like to add it into your magical collection or not, and give it a read. And if it's not for you, hopefully I've saved you a little bit of time and money in the process. So thank you very much in advance for watching my video, and I do hope that you enjoy this book review. So let's get started. Crimson Craft, Sexual Magic for the Solo Witch by Halo Quinn. So this is the very first time I've read a book by Halo Quinn, and I must say I thoroughly enjoyed her writing style. She is unapologetically herself. Her writing style is bold and passionate, and you can tell that when she wrote this book, it is a subject that she is very passionate about and something that she does utilize in her practice. And this was not a book to make money. This was definitely a book to open your eyes to the possibilities of incorporating sex magic in your personal practice. So she definitely enjoyed writing this book, and it comes across in her writing style. As I said, I've never read a book by her before, but I definitely would read more books from this author in the future, and I personally enjoyed her writing style immensely. Now let's read what the back of the book says. Rediscover the sacred nature of sex, pleasure, and the divine erotic in Halo Quinn's Crimson Craft, a guide for sexual magic and a tool for personal healing, spellcasting, and devotional practices in witchcraft. By theorizing the ethics of embodiment and pleasure within these practices, Quinn provides exploratory exercises and tips for taking them further and safely with a partner. Crimson Craft is an introduction not only to archetypes, deities and divine powers, but also to the context and benefits of using kink in ritual and creative writing, inviting you, the witch and magic worker, to deepen your understanding of sexual magic's possibilities and sweetness. It's a great introduction. So let's take a look inside the book and see what she says in the contents. Now, here we go. So you do get a preface, which is an introduction from the author and things that she wanted to say to kind of introduce this book. Chapter 1, we have foreplay about this book, ethics, safety, and how to use the book. Now, that quite literally is about what is the subject of sex magic and how can you go about using sex magic ethically, safely, and use this book to get the best out of it for you and your practice. So that's why she called that particular chapter Foreplay, which I thought was very clever. Part 2, Casting the Circle. Chapter 2, The Divine Erotic. What is the Divine Erotic? So we get an explanation as to what the Divine Erotic is, how it was typically used and how it's used today in modern practices. And she does talk a lot about the sexual currents of magic as well, and how to tap into that in order to use it in your craft and practice. So that is just more about insight and information. It's not actually teaching you too much at this point. It's just information, food for thought, tips and tricks and advice. Chapter 3, Red Witchcraft, Sex Magic from a Witch's Perspective. So here we deep dive into Halo Quinn's personal practice with sex magic, how she incorporates sex magic in her everyday practice, and how she approaches the topic of sex magic. And by getting her perspective, it kind of opens you up to the possibilities and gives you insights into how other witches work with the energy of passion and lust and sex, and how they use sex magic in their practice. So that was very insightful. The term red witchcraft and crimson practice and craft was kind of, I think, coined by this author. I've never heard sex magic be referred to as red witchcraft or crimson craft. That was kind of new to me as I was reading this book. And she does kind of take the colour red to be about sex magic. But when I was taught in occult magic, red was actually the colour of alchemy and transformation magic. If we are going to assign aspects of the craft to colours, that was typically what red was for. So I thought it was interesting that she's kind of taken the colour red again and gone, you know what, this is going to be for sex magic, and I'm going to use that colour to represent it from now on. And that is completely fine. It's like she's reinvented it. And we were, for a while, I think, as a witchy society, kind of decolonizing our practice and removing colour from magic, as in titles, so white and black magic. We were getting rid of those, and I think a lot of the old terms for blue magic, red magic, orange magic, I think a lot of those had died off as well, because they're very old, outdated terms. However, typically they did represent certain styles of magic. So pink magic was beauty, sensuality and glamour. Red magic was alchemy. Then you had ceremonial magic, which was typically seen as white, higher magic. Black magic typically was seen as protection or baneful workings in occult philosophy. Green magic was walk cunning and plants and nature. Silver was high priestess level. Gold was high priest. There were certain colours that were associated with certain aspects of the craft, but I think we've tried to get rid of those. And I love that this writer kind of went, you know what, I'm taking that back, and we're going to give it a new area of magic that it's going to represent. And I don't mind calling sex magic red witchcraft or crimson craft. I think that's quite clever. I like the term crimson craft. I think that's really, really cool, and it definitely sparks something within me personally. In part 2, we have laying the foundation, which is chapter 4, the craft of the witch, the practice of embodiment and sensual magic. So here, this is about kind of using sensuality in your practice, so taste and touch, and getting all your senses involved in the craft, and utilizing those for magic and your experiences as well. So it's kind of getting you in touch with your body a little bit as well. Chapter 5, Magical Preparation, Foundational Practices for Magic. Now, I want to make it clear that this is not a book on basic witchcraft. So if you are completely new to the craft and haven't even picked up a book yet or researched witchcraft and you're thinking, I want to be a witch, this is not an introduction to witchcraft. This particular chapter is more of a foundation of the things you will probably use and need in your practice while becoming a sex witch. So you probably will cast a circle, you probably will use candles and incense, you know, some herbs and ingredients, maybe some oils. So it's talking to you about the very, very basics of ingredients and items and tools you will need in your craft and practice, and what you might like to utilize, and some ideas, tips and tricks around that. But all of that is written in a way that is assumed that you know what they are and how to use them already. So this is not a complete and utter novice book. There is an assumption there that you are already a witch, already practicing witchcraft, and know the basics and foundations of witchcraft. Part 3, Solo Erotic Magic. Chapter 6, Sex Magic, Wholly Divinely Erotic, Healing the Sexual Self. Now, that chapter was probably my favourite chapter. It covers the subject of banishing and undoing shame surrounding sex, doing a little bit of shadow work and deep diving into your thoughts around sex and your impression of sex, and how certain values in society might impact you. Certain, TV shows, stimuli, porn and things like that might have warped your sense of what sex and sensuality is. And that was really insightful and interesting. And it was all about reclaiming your power, feeling sensual and sexy once again, healing damage done to you sexually in various different ways, whether it be by another person or a, particular piece of porn that you watched, or by a magazine that you read, or expectations from society or family, things that you were told that have become ingrained in you that have damaged your view of sex. So that was a really healing and transformative chapter, and one that I recommend everybody read. Chapter 7, Glamoury, the magic of feeling beautiful and being seen. So this was using glamour magic in your practice. So we're talking enchanting your perfumes and cologne, your clothes and jewellery, using makeup and nail varnish and fabrics and all the different sensual things around you in your environment to boost your attractiveness and your potential to find a partner and to create allure and lust and sensuality in your life. So again, I really enjoyed that chapter as well. Chapter 8, the foundations of sexual spellcasting. So sexual spellcasting and the ritual challenge. So here we get some spells and rituals that you can do, some ideas for different ways to use sex magic in your practice. Then we have part 4, Dancing with the Gods, chapter 9, the practice of devotion, the devotional practice, deities and archetypes. So this is about archetypes and deities and devoting yourself to some of them, how that might look in your practice and how you can incorporate that. And then in chapter 10, erotic divinities, so the red goddesses, the wild gods, and the bright spirits. So here we take a look at a list of gods, goddesses, and spirits that you can work with in your practice for sex magic. So these are all very specific to sex magic. Then we have chapter 11, the deities of passion, an introduction to some deities of passion. And then again, how to work with them. There are some beautiful poems, there are some beautiful rituals and exercises to do with some of these deities, and a look into their energies as well to give you an idea about them. It is only the basics about them, so I do recommend if you want to work with any of these spirits or deities that you go and do extra research, like really research them before you connect with them, understand them, look at their stories, their mythology, and then maybe when you're getting to know them as well, introduce yourself slowly to them and ask them if they would like to be part of your practice and help you along your sexual journey. Part 5, Underworld Magic, chapter 12. Now this is probably the chapter that won't be for everyone. This is the chapter about kink, BDSM and facing taboos, self-acceptance, entering the dungeon of healing and power. So this for me was about embracing something different when it comes to sex. I myself am a little bit kinky, but I would not say I'm massively into BDSM. But I do like the way she approached this subject and said it's okay to use this in your practice. It was a way to explore your creative half, to accept yourself and to try something new. So if you're interested, it's about dipping your toes into the kink world, but from a magical perspective. I personally found that chapter to be quite healing, very empowering, different, and very, very interesting. And then chapter 13, Closing at the Crossroads, a letter, a ritual, and an invitation. So this was kind of like her closing thoughts and anything extra she wanted to say or include that wasn't a major topic in the book. It was kind of like a conclusion of the whole book as well, in your journey, how you should feel by the end of the book, what you should have discovered about yourself, and kind of where you should be at, fully empowered, enchanted and strong by the end of the book. And then of course there are some appendices. So appendix 1 is ritual opening and closing. So that's about how to open and close a ritual. Then appendix 2 is further reading, so books that she personally recommends. And then there is a section about Halo Quinn as well, if you're interested about learning about this author. Now, things that I enjoyed about this book, the positives. The book is very beginner friendly. It's inclusive and informative, but it doesn't offer the basics of witchcraft. It isn't a book for a complete novice, as I've said, but it is an excellent book as an introduction to the basics of sex magic as a topic and subject. So if you are thinking about dipping your toes into sex magic, this would be an excellent starter book because it does cover a lot of different things. And mostly what I found with this book is it was extremely healing, and it helped me recognize these things in myself that I didn't even know were there, that were holding me back sexually, that were blockages, or, you know, some things that I considered to be maybe a sin or, you know, shameful or embarrassing, you know. So it really brought those things up and made me go, why do I feel that way? And because I didn't know it was there and I wasn't looking for it, this book really highlighted it and helped me work through it and helped me become more powerful, stronger within myself, confident. So I definitely think this book will highlight and open you up to a few things, and it definitely will help you discover more about yourself sexually. So because of that, I do think it's quite a beginner friendly book, an amazing healing book on your journey to become a powerful sex practitioner. And like I said, a great book to introduce you to the basics of sex magic. This book is probably my first choice when it comes to sex magic. I've read 3 or 4 books on this topic now, and this one was kind of the friendliest approach to sex magic. And because of the way the author wrote the book, it was completely enjoyable. It was bold and passionate and exciting, and just a really enjoyable read, and overall just a fantastic introduction to the subject. So like I said, I do recommend this as a first-time book for dipping your toes into sex magic. All exercises, meditations and rituals can be performed alone, or the author does tell you repeatedly throughout this book that you can also do them with a partner if you choose, making the book quite adaptable. At the end of each chapter, there is a beautiful self-love check-in that reminds you to stop and process what you have learned, checking in with yourself and making sure that you're okay to continue. And actually on that note, I think I just want to show you that, because that for me was brilliant. And I have never seen that before in a book, a self-love check-in. Here we go. So here's one of them. So at the end of every chapter, you will get this page. How are you feeling about this so far? Has anything made you uncomfortable that you might need to be gentle with yourself around? Is there anything that really excited you? Is there anything that felt like coming home? Take a moment now to make a list of 3 things. And then she gives you 3 ideas that are relevant to the chapter. So in this one, it says, number 1, one thing you can do right now that will be good for you. Perhaps you need a glass of water or a moment to take a break. Perhaps sending a message to a loved one would feel good. Maybe you need some food. Number 2, one thing that takes 5 to 15 minutes that would make you smile now. Perhaps putting on your favorite song or playing a game or going outside and watching the birds, clouds, stars or a sunset. Perhaps cuddling your favorite person or stuffed toy. Putting on an item of clothing or jewelry that makes you feel cozy, or reading a favorite poem. 3, one thing you are grateful for right now. Look over your list now, or as soon as you can, go and do the first 2 items on them. So it's kind of like prompts and ideas, but also checking in that you're okay as you progress through this book, which at the time when I read that in the first chapter, I was like, okay. But then as you start to get to the nitty gritty and shadow work and the healing, there were times when I really thought that this was important, and I was so glad it was in there to make me take a moment to go, oh, I need a break and I need to think about this and I need to process. So I did enjoy those self-love check-ins. That was a brilliant insight by the author. This book I found was filled with beautiful poetry, stories and enchanting, inspiring words. The book includes small, simple rituals and meditations that you can try, as well as an oil that you can make for your sex magic. It helps you understand yourself sexually and embrace your own sexual nature in healthy ways, while at the same time working to banish anything that you negatively feel around sex and undoing shame and walking you through a powerful healing journey. There is obviously sections of this book that touch on the subject of BDSM, kink, and alternative sexual practices that you can kind of dip your toes into in this book. So please be aware of that. And if that's not your cup of tea, that's fine. You can skip those sections, but I just want to make you aware that they are included in this book and that bit might not be for everyone. Now for the negatives. Though this is an excellent introduction to sex magic, it is not a complete book on the topic of sex magic, and there were certain subjects that were not included in this book. Now, these particular subjects are things that were included in other books that I read on the topic of sex magic. So the things you will not find in this book include sexual vampirism, astral sex and astral lovers, god spousing, group sex for raising energy, and using sexual fluids such as sperm, period blood, and vaginal fluids in spellcraft. So if you're hoping to use those things, there are other books that talk about that are slightly more advanced than this one, but because this is a beginner book, I can understand why they were not included. But if you want to learn about using sperm, period blood, and vaginal fluids in your craft and practice, you will have to get a different book. And if you want me to talk about those books that include that sort of thing, then let me know. The book doesn't cover the subject of sex magic with a partner as an entire topic. This is more about you approaching sex magic as a solo practitioner and as a solo witch. Now, just because you are a solo witch or a solo practitioner does not mean that you are single. You might have a partner that is willing to practice sex magic with you. And for me, I would have liked to have seen an entire chapter in this book dedicated to sex with a partner, be they magical or not, and how to approach sex magic with a non-magical partner, so someone who's not a practitioner of witchcraft, and somebody who is, and how to go about doing that ethically. So that would have been an interesting topic, but it's just not included in this book. The author talks about deities of passion, but many of them were a stretch for me and not really deities of passion primarily. This could have been expanded into demons of lust, angels for love, and saints, and much more. So I did find that section a little bit lacking on choice and options, and off the top of my head I could think of loads of deities and spirits out there that would be helpful for your sexual journey. So again, although it gives you a couple of insights, you will have to go away and do more research. I don't know if demons were specifically avoided in this book, and the same goes for angels and saints, but they were not discussed at all. It was mostly deities, demigods, that sort of thing. The book, while very good and enjoyable, would have benefited from being divided up into sections for solo magic, sex magic with a partner, sex in a group, sex with spirits, and astral sex. I would have liked the book to have been divided that way to give you all the various topics and to cover those subjects in greater detail. Not as much spell work is included in this book as you might imagine, and there are not as many examples on how to use sex in spells. It seems to be more like enchanting a candle for creating a certain sexual atmosphere in a room, or it was kind of simple things. It wasn't really actually engaging in sex as a practice and channeling that sexual energy from orgasm into a spell or a ritual. So if that's something you were looking for, it kind of wasn't included in this book, which was a bit of a shame. The book doesn't talk about tantra, energy movement in the body, or sexual practices that are discussed and utilised worldwide for ritual use. So I would have really liked this author to have explored tantra as a subject, moving energy throughout the body, the sexual chakras. There are loads and loads of stories and information out there, and the historic use of sex in occult magic that was just not referenced in this book at all. So I would have liked some of that in this book, but again, because this is an introduction and it is beginner friendly, maybe that is too much of a heavy topic, and maybe it was considered to be more intermediate to advanced magic. But those are the things that were not included in this book that I personally think the book could have benefited from. most of them are not necessarily a negative, like the one where I listed the things that were not in this book. More for me, because this is a beginner book, that's not a major negative, but if you are looking for certain subjects, you might perceive it to be a negative because it's not in this book. The book itself is laid out quite nicely. There are lots of poems and stories, prompts. There are spells and rituals you can do. And there are lovely tips and tricks, but there is no pictures, doodles, illustrations. The approach to magic is basic and simple. I think anybody could do it as long as you've got a year or two under your belt in magic. Nothing in this book is too complex, but there is definitely some things in the book that I think might be a little bit triggering while you're on your healing journey, so please bear that in mind. But other than that, I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I will be keeping it in my magical library, and I would quite happily score this book a 7.5 out of 10. There were important things that were missing from it, things that I think that the public could have gained great knowledge on if it was in this book, but because it wasn't there, it slightly lacked for me, and it wasn't quite what I was looking for, because I'm not a beginner in sex magic, but it took me on this fantastic healing journey that I will never forget. So if that's something you're interested in and what you're looking for, this is definitely the book for you. But if you're looking to actually use sex in your magic and move sexual energy around the body, work with sex magic from different religions and cultures all over the world, perhaps work with a partner sexually, do astral projection and have a astral sex partner or lover, god spousing, things along those lines, then it's just not included in this book. So you will have to go and buy a different book that explores those topics in greater detail. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10 from me. Fantastic book, great introduction for a beginner. Definitely will be keeping it, and I will keep my eye on Halo Quinn for other books of interest. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give me that thumbs up, click the bell, and YouTube will tell you when my next video comes out. If you'd like to offer like, love and support to my channel, you can do that through my Amazon wish or my PayPal link. Both are provided. If you'd like to book me and any of my magical services or divination or healing, you can do that through Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr or X, and you can also contact me via email. All the links are provided, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end and supporting me. I do appreciate it. Many blessings, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon. Blessed be.